And then some of the back one.
All right. Hello, everybody. So, welcome to this July 13th Historic District meeting. The board's actions in these matters have been deemed to be quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point or it will be deemed waived. Introductions, we have on my far right, Dan Brown.
Good evening.
All right. And we have, what's your name again, young fella?
Martin Ryan.
Martin Ryan. Reagan Rudig here is going to be
remote.
By Zoom.
She is here, yep, by Zoom.
By Zoom. Very good.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm John Wyckoff. This is Nick Cracknell.
Good evening.
We have City Council Member Blaylock.
Good evening.
We have Margot Doring.
Hello.
David Adams.
Good evening.
And Karen Bouffard.
Good evening.
So we have a couple certificate of approval extension requests. And I believe, Karen, you have to recuse yourself from this guy here. The petition of Donna P. Pentelakis Revocable Trust, GT and DP Pentelakis trustees for property located at 138 Maplewood Avenue, wherein permission is requested for a second one-year extension of the certificate of approval originally granted on July 1st, 2022, to allow new construction to an existing structure. Add a second-story addition over the existing garage. As per plans on file in the planning department, said property is shown on Assessor Map 124 as Lot 6, lies within Character District 4-L1 and the Historic District. So normally we essentially just grant these.
It's a second one-year
Oh, this
extension.
is
So
a
this
second.
This one's been advertised for a public hearing as required because it's the second one-year extension. The next one that you haven't announced yet, 150 Daniel, is a one-year extension, not the second, so it is not a public hearing.
Oh, it's funny, it says originally granted on July 1st, 2022.
Well, that isn't right.
Typo, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that has to be
Yeah.
corrected. So who's here to?
2020.
to,
Good evening,
present
Ann
it?
Whitney, architect for the project. They've had a hard time getting their builder to be freed up. They're meeting actually with him tonight, so we're, proceeding. They're anxious to get this started, and I know it's been 2 years, but basically, I think I should just run through the sheets again, since it's a public hearing. I think most people were on the board. I think Rick Blaylock wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, if you look at sheet 1 of 5, currently it's a 4-bay hip-roofed garage, and they're going to be converting this to a single residence and removing one of the garage bays. One's the one in the middle is an infill panel. We're going to keep that same look. Basically adding a story, picking the hip roof up and going up another story. There's a cantilever on the west end. Not cantilever, it's supported by posts. This is an addition to that. New entry door in where one of the last garage bay was. We're using a combination of 2/2 double hungs and some casements, which are shown there. On this elevation, we did go back in February of 2021, February 3rd of 2021. We had a few changes. Once I'd gotten into doing the construction drawings, we made a few changes. And on this elevation, those 3D windows, and I think Isaac said he was going to pull up the, should I go through the whole thing and then just do the administrative approval? I thought it might be easier to do it sheet by sheet. We had an administrative approval, and he thought he would have those drawings up too.
You requested one, or you already
We
received one?
we got approval for one.
No, I don't, just describe it. I don't think it's
Okay.
on here.
Well, where those,
Is it here?
the 3 small casement windows in the kitchen, we're converting that to a single 48 wide by 43 and a half high awning window with 6 lights,
Which was previously approved.
which was
As a
previously
unit, yeah.
approved at a administrative approval in February of '21. So that was the only change on that sheet.
John, would we really need to go through all the details?
Well,
It is
can
a
you
public
summarize? Yeah,
Excuse me?
go a little, maybe a little faster, and then we'll ask you questions if there's,
Okay, no, I'm ready to go
and
fast.
there are some new
Okay, the
members.
sheet 2 of 5, basically that's the view facing the mill pond. There's a dormer at the upper level that comes off the hip. Row of 5, 2/1 double hungs. On the lower level, I have a triple French door. And again, those 2 D windows on either side of the French door, we eliminated when we got the administrative approval. So that's all on that one. On, just gotta look at my 3 of 5, there were no changes to that. Basically, where that shed dormer is popping up is in a stairway to get headroom to get to the attic. And continuing with the same size windows. Were there any questions? The last sheet is the east elevation, which you can't really see from anywhere because it's right behind the original building on the property. And we're, replacing the existing door that's located there and then adding 2. And then that lower F window, that was another item that we deleted. We decided to not have that window in the garage on the, on this elevation. So that one F window was eliminated.
Okay.
We also had a heat pump location. Actually, if you go back to
The beginning,
3 of,
here?
yeah, that elevation in, I won't touch it. This area
Yeah.
here.
You have to speak back there, I guess. Just point and then go back.
Okay.
You didn't bring the mic.
I didn't
You've
bring
really
the
shaken
mic.
it up.
So in that area between the double hungs and below, we have a enclosure for 2 possible heat pumps. They haven't been totally sized yet, but I'm
Have you
thinking.
screened them?
What's that? And they're screened. And I have that if you want
Has
to.
it been approved?
And it's been approved and.
Administratively?
Administrative approval in
Okay.
February.
Got it.
Yep.
The admin approval,
So that about does it.
It is. Oh, okay. Further down in the packet.
So we have a couple people here that
Right here.
are new. Rich or David, have you have any questions or comments?
My only comment, Mr. Chairman, is this is an interesting approach to the renewal because it gives me an opportunity to review the plans, and I'm very pleased with them.
Okay. Mr. Blaylock?
I will echo Commissioner Adams' comments, and I'm very pleased with these plans.
All right, very good. If
Yeah.
there's no other comments,
How big is that unit? Just curious. How many square feet?
Oh, God, I don't have it in my head.
What would you guess?
Because there's some space on the first floor. It's, I think it's like 26 by maybe 50.
So 1,100?
11, so probably 1,500 with
With the
the
attic
lower level.
And the attic.
And then the attic might add another, 400 or 500 square feet.
Seems like a great
are you going to rent it?
ADU. No, I mean, it's
And we've got an elevator, it is set
an
up
accessory
for,
building.
it's set up with an elevator for, single floor living if
Nice.
need be.
Just right for old guys.
Yep, like we're all
Miss-
getting to be.
Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this extension? So I guess that I'll just gonna, you know what?
Let me see if Reagan has anything she wants to add. I didn't-
All good.
Reagan, are you good? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the extension.
When you're done, do a roll call because of Reagan, right? Remember that? Because she's on.
Really?
Yeah. You gotta remember to do
Do
that.
you need finding of facts? Please
Yes.
say no.
Just, yeah, why not?
It is compatible with the, it is compatible, it preserves the integrity of the district and is consistent with the special and defining character of the surrounding property.
Very good. All right, so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call?
I'm sorry, roll call. Dan?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Reagan?
Yes.
All right. Rich?
Yes.
Yes.
And David?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, so you have your extension. All right, petition of the Warner House Association owner for property located at 150 Daniel Street, wherein permission is requested for a one-year extension of the certificate of approval originally granted on July 7th, 2021, to allow the construction of a new freestanding structure, a two-story carriage house, and the installation of mechanical equipment, an AC condenser, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 106 as Lot 58 and lies within the downtown overlay, civic, and historic districts. So this one is a standard extension, and I don't believe we have to go through.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Public
I'd like to
hearing.
move that we approve this extension.
Seconded?
Okay. Dan, thank you. We have to have a roll call.
Aye.
Martin.
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Margot,
Yes.
Dave,
Aye.
Karen,
Yeah.
and the chair votes aye. Okay. So we're back to plain old public hearings, old business. Work session, public hearing, requested by 531 Islington Street, Portsmouth LLC owner for property located at 531 Islington Street, which is Dunkin' Donuts, wherein permission is requested to allow renovations to an existing structure, new signage, siding, and other exterior improvements. As per plans on file in the planning department, said property is shown on Assessor Map 157 as Lot 5, lies within Character District 4-L2 and historic districts. And I believe, Nick, that you had something you wanted to say about this?
This is going to be a work session tonight, with the understanding we'll have a public hearing on August 3rd, because there's a couple of components, at least one, the menu board, that has to go to the Board of Adjustment. So I'd advise us to go to the work session table to have that conversation.
Okay, and from this point on, it's all work sessions, you know, so bring everything you got. Bring it all.
Lunch, pizza.
Comments that were submitted from tonight's meeting, the back page on the front is some comments on this project.
It's a citizen comment.
Keeps us jumping.
You've probably never seen it before.
Elizabeth Bratter.
They actually said material questions, so that is actually what we're proposing. Same color scheme.
Then great.
He just went in.
Me?
On the right track.
Yeah, it looks like that. It isn't my fault. This is gonna take a minute here, I think. Nick, to get re-hooked up. All right, I'll just start it out here. We've got, this, something we have seen before, and I think I'll just lay it on your lap and why don't you get started?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for meeting with us. This is the first time I've actually sat down at this table. I'm not used to coming to HDC meetings. I'm usually at the podium, so this is a novelty for me.
Nice down here.
I'm getting to that. I'm Sharon Summers. I'm the attorney for the applicant. I'm with Donahue, Tucker, and Chindella. And with me tonight are Dorothy Salima Normand and Joan Salima is over there. They're the owners of the property. Also with me is Eric Medeiros, who is with
Aronian.
There we go. I know I was going to botch that. The architects. And we're here tonight to follow up on the meeting that we were at in April, which, we were not as prepared as perhaps we could have been in terms of the design elements, but since we have been to you, we've been spending a great deal of time working with Nick and with Vincent Hayes and with Peter Stith to identify, first of all, what the zoning requirements are that we would need relief for from the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And we determined that we needed setback relief and also relief for the illuminated menu board. And I should just also point out, I hope it got into your the portal or the packet or whatever the heck it's called, but I submitted last Thursday a 3-page document which included kind of a template of what the speaker tower is going to look like, and also I submitted something which is labeled Exhibit 2, and in the lower right-hand corner of that, you'll see something that's marked schematic site plan, and that shows the proposed location of the menu board and the speaker tower, which face out towards the rear of the property. So you may find that helpful when you're looking at these materials tonight. So in addition to working through the zoning requirements and learning more than I ever needed to learn about signage, we also spent some time with Nick discussing various design elements and ways in which we could make the proposed renovation fit within the district, given the fact that the streetscape is one which, in my view, is kind of mixed. I mean, I drove in here tonight, and while there are certainly some really nicely done residential houses probably from the recent past, there's also remnants of what I call the old Portsmouth. The bread box is still there, the strip mall across the street with the dentist, the garage down at the corner of Bartlett Street, and so forth. And Duncan certainly is a key component of that whole fabric because it's been there since the 1980s. So what we have proposed to do, Eric working with Nick, is to essentially do a rehab of this to include new siding and so forth, and I'll let Eric go into that in detail. Just by way of context, though, I do also want to note that we are doing this renovation in large part, if not entirely, because as the franchisee, we are required to work with the franchise company, Duncan, in order to do these periodic renovations, both to make sure that we are operationally on the same page with the corporation, and also just to make sure that we can bring the aesthetics up to par. And I think you'll agree with me, having looked at some of the pictures, that a fresh coat of paint, literally, and some other things would be a help here. So that's why we're doing it. We've already had a couple of extensions in terms of our mandate due to COVID and so forth, and so we're here tonight, having gone through one or two speed bumps, and we are hoping to get some comments, hopefully positive from you, including on the proposed illuminated menu board, and then we will go to the ZBA next week, where if things go according to plan, we could then come back here on August 3rd and hopefully get our approval. So with that, I will be quiet and I'll turn it over to Eric.
Thanks, Sharon, and thanks to everyone for having me back. I can touch on some of the building elements that we've adjusted since our previous meeting. So first of all, it was great to be able to review these historic district standards in accordance with this design. So I appreciated the time to spend on those, and also some time speaking with Nick about some of the design features of this building and the adjacent properties that I could use as reference points. And so in speaking with the client, one of the decisions that was made was to remove the existing ephes that clads the building, as we feel it's a little bit out of character for the district itself. And the ephes is going to be replaced with a James Hardie fiber cement board siding product, the cedar mill finish. We picked out the aged pewter look, which interestingly enough was on that email reference project from the public, which I thought was useful. So the intent is to clad the building with the siding and trim throughout. The existing accent band at the mid-height is going to remain, and then the upper parapet was clad in existing metal panel. That's all being removed and also replaced with a James Hardie type siding product. That product actually has a kind of a wood tone look to it. So it does bring a little bit of earth tone into the equation, a little bit more of a historic character. And the last piece that we did on that parapet was actually reworked. There's an existing metal cornice there. It's very 1970s. That's to be removed and done with some new trim work. And the trim work meant to echo the cornice just to help the building meet the sky in a way that's a little bit more sensitive to the neighborhood and the materials that we're using on the site. And just to highlight a few other design changes that have been made outside of the finishes here. The previous design was proposing new signage around the building, and this design is actually proposing maintaining the existing box signs and changing faces on them only. Another thing that we added per the request of the owner was a white vinyl fence, and that's going to show up in two different places here. One on the east elevation to screen what is a gas meter along the side drive aisle of the building. And then also on the rear of the building, we have an exterior walk-in cooler freezer box, so that'll also be shrouded with the white vinyl fence. The last change that was made here from our previous design was actually to bring back and maintain, we'll be doing a new fabric awning on the site. The previous design was using a much more modern-looking structure that we felt did not represent the district or any of the adjacent buildings. We felt that the fabric made a lot of sense here to maintain. So that is just a quick summarization of the changes that were made, and just to kind of clarify, if anybody has any questions, all of the existing storefront at this building is to remain. The existing structure itself is not being touched, so it's really all finishes, materials, kind of the overall feel of the building to be dressed up a bit more. So
Isn't the glass being replaced or not?
there are no areas where the glazing is being replaced.
Is that double glass or what?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Where are you referring to?
I'm referring to the whole building.
Yeah, it's
No,
an
I mean,
old
it's-
storefront system.
It's just a suggestion, but this glass is really at the end of its life. And what's going to happen is it's going to cloud up and really look pretty poorly, but you can deal with that later on, I guess.
Would your concern be more of a maintenance type item than an aesthetics item?
Yeah.
Understand, yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that we can discuss with our contractor on site.
Yeah.
Replace as needed.
Martin?
Yeah, thank you. This is a lot better than what we saw previously, and it relates to the district way better than it did before. And, you know, that's kind of what we were asking for. So I can support this. I think that it wasn't huge leaps to get us there, and there seemed to be a lot of heat about this, but yeah, this is wonderful. I can support this.
Thanks.
Rick?
Yeah, I want to echo Commissioner Ryan's comments that we appreciate the effort that you guys did make and the trying to get more natural materials that'll fit into the neighborhood. But yeah, thank you for.
Yeah, thank you.
And again, it was a change of, when you first started, it wasn't a historic district, and the historic district moved up to you. So part of it was our change, and we appreciate you adjusting to that.
So I too appreciate what you've done. But I do have a couple of questions about things that you haven't addressed and whether those were things that you had considered but had to reject for whatever reason. And my question was around the cement feet that are at the base of the
Portico?
Portico, thank you. And the portico itself is a little bit odd in where it's placed and how it's shaped. It is also, it's very 1970s, 80s, time frame. So I wondered if those particular elements, if you'd given any consideration to what might be done with those either now or in the future.
We definitely look into what's
I
to be
think
done with the
I
just
think-
dressing it up, and we're not gonna.
Like a stone cladding
Yeah,
or something.
something in
Squaring
that
it
form,
off
but
around.
not.
Yeah.
We won't be removing that awning because it provides cover for our guests coming through and so.
Yeah, I think there are 2 points to be made there, and one is with all of the road work and construction being done coming down Islington Street, it's important for the franchisee team to maintain that we have a nice pedestrian cross path to the street, and so I think that's actually a good part of the reason that the franchisee team is looking to keep and maintain that coverage. The other thing that I had in mind in looking at this and trying to think about the design changes that might help to dress those up, because they're not exactly the prettiest columns.
Flintstone?
Coming down, yeah. I was thinking about wrapping them in something, and then looking at that sidewalk, as soon as you start to wrap and add materials to it, it becomes rather thick and bulky, and there doesn't really seem to be quite enough room to do what I'd like to do there. For the purposes of this design specifically, what we tried to do was break them up with the colors a bit more. So painting the base charcoal and painting the pole white, as opposed to today they're all the same even color. And so the thought there is just to try to get a little bit more contrast, a little more variance, make it look as good as we can without wrapping it and therefore clustering up that sidewalk area.
Jumping in here, Mr. Chairman, this to me is the thing right up front that we really, recognizing that this has happened to you. I got that. But these are a little awkward, to say the least. The bases are too heavy, I think, for the mass of the portico, and the columns are too light for the bases.
Makes sense.
I would really appreciate some kind of attempt at making those things look not like some phony colony fluted column, but to make them a little bit less Flintstone.
Right.
That to me, for a rehab of the thing without changing the footprint, without changing the glazing, it seems like that's the place you could have a fair amount of impact right out in front, where everybody sees when they go to this place, and it'd be a place you could make a new statement.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment.
Karen, would you like to say something?
I appreciate the changes as well, and the portico is definitely the foremost item that you see just driving by and entering it. So if there is something you can do to make that a little bit more sympathetic to the area, that'd be great.
So I'm going to agree with everyone also, but is it the narrowness of the portico and the fact that these concrete tubes butt up against the side of the concrete walkway? Is that the problem as far as adding something to the exterior of it?
Because one part of it will cross over into the parking lot because it butts right up against where the cars are parking. The other side is going to crowd across, and basically that walkway that would go right between the two as you approach the building front on would get even more tight.
So
that
it
was
would
our
have to be.
You could probably get a 2.5 inch veneer on there.
There are a few different ways that we could approach
There's
it.
other ways
It'll
of
get
doing it.
beefier if you square it off on the corners, but it seems like you could do that.
It's certainly worth
Just like big
exploring.
sonotubes is what they look
Yeah.
like.
That's exactly what's going on there. Very 1970s.
Recognizing that there are people going to drive up to these things not always with great accuracy in cars.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's part of what this is. This is a pedestrian corral.
I can put bumpers in the spaces too.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. There are ways of dealing
There's a
with
curb,
it,
it's
indeed.
raised.
If there was an awkwardness in the size of the walkway, without having to tear the whole thing up, you could just do a different kind of paving to extend the width of it, just in the area where these bollards or these posts are. I'm sorry, clinging
But
to
we
this
can't,
thing,
but
but
no, like, those are good points. I appreciate it.
Reagan is,
Reagan, go ahead.
Reagan,
Hi.
Thank you. I just have a couple quick questions. One was the finish sort of texture of the Hardy panel clapboards. Is that smooth, or were you suggesting that to be like the grain imprint on it?
Yeah, thanks for your question, and I apologize for not clarifying that sooner. The intent there is to use the cedar mill finish,
The wood grain
not the
finish?
smooth finish. Correct. Yeah, the product is
Okay,
called cedar mill.
How does everybody feel about that? Normally it's smooth side
Could
out.
could I ask that you use the smooth finish, please? Because I don't know. This is my opinion, but actual wood clapboards don't have a wood grain texture to them, and so when you have a wood grain texture on it, it's just screaming that it's fake and trying to be wood. So
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I don't think that there's anything specific that we were stuck on there other than our material precedence project. But so I don't think that would be an issue on our end to
are they
make that
going to be
adjustment.
field painted?
So that is a question of the supply to be honest, right now. We would prefer it to be painted, brought to the site pre-finished. Though, based on the supply chain issues that we've been experiencing, we might, depending on when the renovation takes place.
Be primed.
The goal is definitely to have them pre-finished brought to the site, but and I can actually say certainly the wood look that's going to be on the parapet, those are pre-finished, no matter what. We don't paint those.
So I think you got,
Correct.
Can I just make a couple questions?
couple comments?
Comments? Did you ever consider like an aluminum fence versus a vinyl screen?
Actually, there wasn't. I actually maybe I asked Dorothy. Dorothy had kind of led me towards the white vinyl fence, but I don't know that we had a discussion about the fencing material other than.
It seems like it will shatter and not last that well. but Anyway, that was one question, and whether you'd ever consider an externally lit sign on the end of that canopy. So you've got lights indirectly lighting it versus an internally lit sign.
Which canopy are you
The
referring to?
canopy at the front we've all been talking about.
Oh,
It would be really nice. You're not proposing to do anything to that sign, but I think it'd be great if that sign was not internally lit in plastic.
This
Could still
projecting
say,
sign?
yeah, say what you want it to say, but hang some lights up there that indirectly light it.
I think, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Dorothy, but Dorothy can speak for herself. I think that part of the thinking with this project and where we are right here is that there are going to be future renovations. And this, what you're talking about right now, which is the internally lit Duncan sign, may very well be on the list of things to be addressed for the next cycle of renovations. But I think that for now, the preference is to keep it as it is and just reface it.
So you are going to replace the sign with a new refaced sign. So you are spending money to redo the sign that's there today with a new
But
plastic
we're
sign.
also spending a lot of
Yeah.
money to redo the rest of the building.
I just want to
that
be
we
clear,
want-
the sign
yeah.
is not staying the way it
Absolutely.
is. It's
Clarification.
being
Yes,
replaced
absolutely.
in the same
But
material.
just refaced.
lighting.
Yeah, it's just the face.
Just the
that's being
face.
replaced.
Yeah.
Right.
It'll be great if you put that at the top of your list. It's what everybody
list.
sees first, even before that.
Yep.
Besides the bollards, which are.
Now they
at the
see
top
that
of the
sign
list.
before the bosses.
Okay. So I think that you've heard our slate requests, and you're coming back after the zoning board, so
Anyone in the public?
do we need a motion?
Let's see if anyone in the public wants.
All right, does anybody in the public want to speak on this?
Nobody here online.
So I guess we need a motion to come back at a certain date?
August 3rd.
August 3rd, that's a good date.
Make
So-
a motion to continue to August 3rd?
I'll second that.
For a public hearing.
Okay, do I have to go through this every time?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike?
Agreed.
Rich?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Margot?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
Aaron?
Yes.
And Reagan?
Yes.
Okay. You vote yes? Yes, I vote yes. So it's unanimous, and we'll see you August 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate all your commentary.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that.
Maybe not the blue.
The blue is the best part.
Because if you're in the handicap spot, you think they're going to break right or break left. Not going to go in front of the car.
Yeah,
Could be another thing altogether, other than just a bunch of little bollards.
yeah, I like that. Thank you
Opportunity
for
for
the
you to
suggestion.
grow here.
There's been a lot of growth this summer already. You know?
All right,
Thank you all again.
yeah, you're welcome.
Good for, great for planters.
So now we're just in work sessions. Work session requested by 1 Rains Avenue LLC, 31 Rains Avenue LLC, and 203 Maplewood Avenue LLC, owners for property located at 1 Rains Avenue, 31 Rains Avenue, and 203 Maplewood Avenue, wherein permission is requested to allow the construction of a 4 to 5 story mixed-use building and a 5-story hotel, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 123 as Lot 14, Map 123 is Lot 13, and Map 123 is Lot 12, lies within Character District 4 in Historic District. And who is here to present this again?
Good evening.
Nice, right? Right before you go.
Carla Goodnight and Jake Weeder from CJ Architects and Eben Tormey of XXS Hotels. And we...
Evan, do you live in Portsmouth?
I do.
You do? Yeah. That's good.
Jones Avenue.
Yeah.
So we are primarily focusing on the specific comments received at the last meeting regarding the architectural expressions of the primary entry canopies. So back to the drawing board, and we are leading on page 1.0 with the significant upgrades to the Maplewood Ave canopy, the Rains Ave canopy, and the canopy on the hotel. So all three of them have been given a very nice shot of adrenaline and really have.
It's a good way of putting it. Shot of adrenaline.
They have. I think they came out really nice. So that is the primary change. We've also enriched some of the details on either side, added lighting, worked on resolving some of the cladding details above the canopy, so everything is much more harmonious and pulled together.
We got some comments about breaking that horizontal band at those entrances to sort of identify the entrances, and as Carlos said, some detailing on the columns, the lighting.
Yep. And I like the hotel has a slightly different language there with the brackets, as does, all three of them really have an identity, but they are definitely related. So that is the primary change, and the rest of the renderings have been reproduced with those elements, but really page 1.0 is the summary of what we heard from you last time was our remaining deficit. So
We did work a little on the entrance above the hotel as well. We've pushed those windows back within that fish scale pattern, so there's some depth to that facade. So you can see that actually in the upper right image on 1.0.
right.
I know we talked about how that's detailed and how that projects, so we played with that a little bit as well.
Right, if you look on 1.4, it's, very, much more prominent. I think it really having that pull forward and have the outside corners works really well. Catches the brick detailing and the horizontal banding.
So this is fish scale over the...
Yep. And
Have you thought about some kind of cornice for that four-story, maybe a separate cornice or some, instead of just ending it at the sky, it just sort of stops? Is that what you intended to have it do?
like a cap, you're thinking?
Like a cornice.
Your small corner elements have just enough to cast a shadow.
Yeah. Yeah, the rest of the building does, but your most important section.
Okay. And just keep going through the one section, the one series. This is the view again from the Maplewood Bridge, and then again the aerial on Rains. These are largely unchanged from the prior submission of the mixed-use building, with the exception of the canopies. And then, of course, we just talked about 1.4 for the hotel. 1.5 is the view across the water.
Oh, the AC disappeared.
It did, look at that.
Wishful thinking.
It has dropped out of that rendering. 1.6, the view of the drive-under area and the mixed use in the background. And then 1.7, the view across the water, showing many of the elements that we've been carrying through. And then For reference, the 2 series, 2.0 through 2.4 gives you 2.5 is the plans. So building plans and dimensions. And then 2.6 through 2.11 is all of the elevations of the mixed-use building. So we've cordoned them out, that way you can see the dimensions and heights and sizes of these elements. And then 2.12 sections. And then the rest of the 2 series is details keyed to various areas of the building. If you have any questions about sizes and execution of some of these profiles, that is represented through the end of the 2 series, and then the same pattern repeats in the 3s for the hotel building. We have the exact, starting with the plans, elevations, building sections, and then the corresponding details, which it sounds like we'll be adding.
And I realized
the cap
that the
detail.
optional did not
Yes,
get deleted.
I saw
I've
that
deleted
too.
it on mine, and I know we deleted on one PDF, but I don't think it made it into the package, so I apologize
Scratch it
for
out
that.
right now.
I can, want me to put this on your iPad?
You could do that.
Yep.
So I apologize for
There
that.
was some kind of question about the vinyl windows, et cetera. How did that work out?
I think that we were,
We're showing the Marvin Essential on the
yes.
residential, and then similar to the AC on floors 2 through 5, the vinyl, which is much more energy efficient than like an aluminum window, also allows for the operation. And there's a pretty nice profile, which we've included on that Harvey window. Harvey window, Harvey.
4.2
It's
specs
just
the
that term
Marvins.
Harvey window does to it.
I know, but you're used to a very flat, no profile, grill between the glass, residential window.
4.2, 4.3.
Yeah.
4.2 is the Marvin.
Yeah, 4.3.
And
Is that
4.3.
proposed for the first 2 floors? Is that what you said? The Marvin?
No, the Marvin is the mixed-use building on 2 through 4 and penthouse.
Okay, with the storefront
With
above.
storefront on the first floor,
Hotel, you're proposing the vinyl windows,
on 2 through 5.
2 through 5. Well, the first
Not-
floor is kind of storefront.
First floor is all storefront, so that's the Conair Tri-Fab Black, yep. And that profile is on the left side of the 4.3 for the guest room windows. And then at the stair towers, which are treated differently with the lighter gray, those are storefronts as well.
So everything's, what's the Marvin window clad with? Is it aluminum on the mixed-use building?
That
The
is
essential is fiberglass.
Fibertex or whatever, yeah, that's.
It's cold-truded, which is a word they made up.
What would
Fiberglass.
prevent you from doing that on the hotel?
Some of the size restrictions on those,
That's it?
I think those are, you can't go to the widths, I think, that we have on these. We can
Isn't
check
the
on that.
integrity also vinyl, fiberglass? clad
The
window?
Integrity's aluminum clad.
Is it?
I think so, yeah. I don't know, Dan,
I
are you
thought
still
it
here?
was fiberglass.
Integrity,
I think it's fiberglass. You gonna look it up? I am gonna look it
I
up.
thought that was also.
Surely you
vi-
could
I
find
thought that was
windows that
vinyl.
size that are vinyl.
That didn't
I thought
have, they weren't
Integrity was
vinyl.
vinyl.
What's that?
I thought it was, well, they changed the name now, too. There's Essential and Elevate, and it's not,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, they changed the
The
name.
Elevate, I think,
But
is
I-
fiberglass.
The Elevate
Not
is
confidently, no.
metal, aluminum clad.
Like John said.
Right. I believe that the
The Essential
other one
something.
is vinyl clad, I think.
What's the other one?
Essential, which is what we're specking here, is the fiberglass.
Both Integrity by Marvin and Infinity by Marvin are made from Marvin's Essentials fiberglass.
Oh, they are.
Cold treated fiberglass.
Yeah,
so it is
that's the word.
Yeah.
Integrity and Essential are fiberglass.
Yes.
And the Elevate is
I mean,
aluminum.
that's far more
Yeah, I
durable
think
than
it is.
vinyl.
Yeah. When you feel pain. Anyway. Well, you guys make people feel paint fiberglass all the time. Put the brush marks on, but this is a big hotel.
Yeah, it's a
not a
big
house.
hotel, yeah. Does anybody else have some comments on anything here going?
Well, I appreciate the work done on the canopies, that improvement. I was hoping that we would see a little more architecture at the corners of the building. It is sort of generic. And I agree with John that just going up and terminating without a arch or without any kind of termination, any kind of gestures is not not a good way to go. I can't support the vinyl window. I think we're getting closer. Those are my comments.
I was hoping for a little bit more architectural features. I know last time I think we spoke, I know Commissioner Ryan asked for Carla to do some magic on it. I don't know if I've seen that.
Did they let you, Carla?
But yeah, I'm just
You
a
don't
little
have to say.
disappointed in that regard.
Well, I think the canopies are a good impact on pedestrian activity. I think putting the focus down where there's a lot of pedestrian movement and so forth.
Kind of magic. Sort of like a card trick. It's magic.
Yes.
I'm cutting it in half.
Dan?
I like the way it's going. On a positive note, when I looked at 1.7, even though we know it's 5-story, 5-story, and 5-story, that view and what you've done with the brick sort of fits in the old idea of starting low at 3-story and then 4, and then moving bigger as you got away from the road and as you got away from the pond. And I like that, even though we know the penthouses are there. It gives you that feeling that you're going from small to large. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I do.
I know what your opinion is going to be, but you might as well spit it out, Margot.
Did you want to say something?
I do just want to reinforce that I think you will be pleased with what we're calling the traditional look of the mixed use when it gets actually constructed. With that, the brick detailing on the cornice, we have horizontal banding there. We have some really nice, traditional features along the base in masonry, and I think that the lighter that we're talking about, where the top two layers are lighter, really will read. So I think when all of this banding work goes in along that cornice, there's 4 layers of treatment there on top of each other. I think that will read nicely, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. It is traditional, but I am not going to say it's boring, because it's not.
All right, Margot?
So, no, my opinion has not changed on this building. What I find so frustrating is that in my head, there's this backstory about what's going on with this building, and it came to us pre-baked in its shape, its size, its form, and this is before you joined the team, Carla, and Heinz Salk-Schubert asked a very, very important question of your predecessor. What about this building as an architect makes you proud? And that architect didn't have an answer, because Heinz called it a building by balance sheet, that this is the size and the shape that needs to be done in order to meet some goal, and you have tried mightily to fix it as much as you possibly can, to make it look smaller, to make it more interesting, to make it more traditional, to add human elements. I mean, you've done everything you possibly can. But, you're stuck in a form that's very, very difficult, that is too large for the site, and I think it's dooming you to failure in my eyes. But when you can't get past the mass of a building, it's really hard to get on board with all the other stuff that's going on. And as much as I might like some of your individual design elements, and ironically, I don't think your element above the front entrance of the hotel needs to have a cap. I think I like how it stands out. So I'm not adverse to some of the architecture that you have here, but I can't get past the fact that it's really, really big, and it's sitting in one of these prime locations, right on the water and right at the entrance of our city. And it's really basically brick and windows in a very traditional, unimaginative layout. And then I see your proposal for 161 Deer Street, and it's traditional and it's brick, but it has some elements that just pop out and say, I'm different. I'm an interesting building. And I don't see that here. And as a key location, welcoming you into the city, to have something that's relative to other things in the city, bland, when you have a blank slate on the ground to work with, I would just find it so incredibly frustrating, and I find it frustrating as a commissioner, to feel that we've just been given this thing, and the only things we've been allowed to do is chip at the edges here and there in an effort to wear down or finally convince people that enough smoke and mirrors has happened to change the actual mass of the building, when it hasn't. And none of these renderings or these beautiful pictures show what this building looks like when you're actually standing on the ground or standing on the bridge. The shots are always up at the second or third level, and it completely changes, the feel of a building when you look at it from this perspective. And every time this building comes up, every time I go down and I stand on that corner and I walk around Rains Avenue, and I just cannot get beyond it. Sorry.
It's kind of hard to come in after that.
I had to agree.
This is the least offensive thing I've seen here.
Thank you.
I'm trying to make that a good thing, right? There are parts of this that seem very boring and repetitious. I think, honestly, much like you're suggesting, this isn't ever going to be a reason why anyone comes to Portsmouth. If this suits your client because of his mathematics, it's not offensive to me. I recognize pieces and parts of this. It has a module to it, which in some parts of the town we see repeated. It has separate window glazing, window setting by itself with a header and a sill, as one would say, the traditional elements. I would like, honestly, when the day comes that we can stand out front with a sample panel of brick and be sure about how the brick was going to be expressed on this. And that's an important thing. We all know that. But as this stands, you've done many of the things that we asked you to do to make this thing not a problem. I think that's what you've accomplished. If you're happy with it and your client's going to pay for it, I see no reason to not build it.
Thank you. We did intentionally go down a traditional road with a lot of these elements, and I think that that will be appreciated when it's done. The details, some of these traditional elements, and the fact that it goes, the brick goes from 3 to 4 to higher over. It steps up from Maplewood, I think, from the hotel back down.
Reagan? Are you there?
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I mean, my opinion still hasn't changed, obviously, because there's not a whole lot to this building that the design has changed. I'm still not excited by the design. I think it's, the hotel is very hotel-y looking. you know, like Dave said, it's not offensive, but it's not exciting either. And I think that the reason this whole area is in the historic district, certainly not because of its historic context. I think it's because it's coming to us to review, and hopefully the new buildings here, the intention should be that these buildings should contribute to the historic district by having a new building that is representative of its time and interesting and something that is going to be worth saving and hanging on to, and really speaks to Portsmouth and its designs and architecture of 2022. So that in 50 years and 75 years and 100 years, you know, it's a building worth saving, that it's a historic building that, you know, contributes to this continued history of Portsmouth and its continued architectural history. I don't see this, I mean, maybe in 100 years I'll be proven wrong, but I don't see this as really contributing to that architectural makeup in Portsmouth's continued history. Some of the other buildings that have been built newly, I feel the same way. So this is just kind of, in my opinion, sort of filler buildings that are fine, but don't really contribute all that much. So sorry to have that sort of downer of an opinion, but that's how I feel about this.
So I would just like to say, as with David, that I appreciate the traditional window openings, double hung windows, et cetera. I think that especially on the mixed-use building, it's very successful. And when you cross the bridge, which I do every day, and sometimes it's difficult for me to look at the Heinemann's building, although everybody has sort of said, well, this is, you know, a successful modern architecture. I'm feeling actually that I would prefer looking at this and then the Heinemann's building. I don't know the number on Maple.
145.
Thank you very much, yeah. So as far as context go, I mean, we're just, this whole area, the north end is built up with these buildings. And I think that it's just what it is. It's a section of Portsmouth that is definitely different. And I feel it's relatively successful. I'm not as pleased with the hotel. I never have. But I don't know what to say. I'm hoping you can do something creative with that entryway and at least make it look to have a little more interest when you come around from that street by the 3S art space, et cetera. I know you've got fish scale. That doesn't really do it for me, but anything that could help that out, I'm willing to look at. That's it for me. So is there anybody in the public that would like to speak about this?
No one on my.
Nope. Okay, so that's it. I don't think we need to vote on this. It's just
Well,
come
unless you're
back.
going to continue it. What do you want to do?
What do you want to do?
Ooh, to potential.
We are now.
Why don't you continue it, and if you decide differently, you can file for a public hearing. That way you'll at least have it as a placeholder.
Right, okay,
So moved?
I think so.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need to vote on that.
Just, yeah, you do. You're continuing it to a date certain.
Aye?
Okay, Margot,
Aye.
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 Agreed.
Reagan,
Yes.
John, aye. Okay. Very good.
How did this get so big? Is that it for the island? Huh? Is that it? The last, this is the last of the buildings on the,
Oh, over there?
That's
Yep, on the north end.
yeah.
Well, you still have the parking lot at 111, at Rains and Maplewood. That'll get redeveloped. Probably 111 will get redeveloped, a single story,
Yes, that's true.
even though it's a product of its time.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Are we being taped right now? Is it live?
Which?
It is, okay. If it was still live.
179. Better be on there.
Question.
This is a work session requested by Mill Pond View LLC, owner for property located at 179 Pleasant Street, wherein permission is requested to allow new construction to an existing structure, minor demolition, new construction, restoration, renovation of an accessory structures and annex of the main home, as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 108 as Lot 15, lies within the Mixed Research Office and the Historic District. Introduce yourselves again.
Good evening again. Carla Goodnight and Jake Leader from CJ Architects and David Calkins representing owners.
I was hoping we'd have a quick second. I'll pass this around super fast because I'm very proud of it.
We brought you a present.
Yeah, mostly look at the second and third page, but the efforts to remove existing trim, architectural details, the whole front of the mansion right now, we have stripped down about halfway the paint down to original siding, rosehead nails. I mean, the effort's been pretty exhaustive, but the final product is, well, it's not final, but the end result thus far has been spectacular. Sill work too, the entire sill has been replaced. We're putting 1-inch exterior sheathing that's coming from a gentleman out of Chichester that is original. So again, just wanted you to see that.
And
What are
basically.
you doing with that blasting?
No, as I think Reagan had mentioned, it's too abrasive. We're going to be looking at soda blasting for the elements that we took off of the annex. Someone said that we can send that out and we'll do test spots on that, because what's happening on the siding of the mansion is chemical. There's a remediation company doing it. It's all being done to the textbook, but it is chemical. So if we could get away from that for some of it, it'd be great.
So the first page of this sort of quick sheet is the storage and capture of the trim elements that will be reinstalled. The second page is more trim that's been preserved from the annex, as well as all of the sash removal stacked up and so forth. The third page is the siding progress and the sills replacement, which you can see all stabilized and fixed there, meshed in with the original construction that Dave was just describing. And then the final page is again actually from the shop where they've done these repairs and toothed in little sections of, what is it, oak?
Actually, I don't know what the species is, but yeah, they've stripped all the paint and stain, and now they're repairing. So,
and some more siding and so that's where we are.
Same one.
Well, there's only two of these?
There's, well,
There's a third, yeah.
you can have mine. It's got some notes on it. Sorry.
As you went through everything, nobody could follow along.
I'm sorry. We should have,
Wants this, anybody?
I'll take it.
we
Please.
brought them last time and didn't even get to it, so we thought we'd leave with it this time.
All right.
All right, so, what we've done is move forward the concept that we talked about last time, which is starting to talk about the scope of work that will be performed on each part of the building. And we're continuing with our nicknames, the dog leg and the connector, and then the carriage house, so we can identify those three portions of the project. And we've done a key very similar to how we did on the mansion, what will be demolished, what will be replaced in kind, and what will be removed, restored, and reinstalled. So again, the dog leg and the connector would be demolished, and the that gate that we discovered will be preserved, and that's shown on an inset on 2.0. And then one of the things that we're proposing, which I'm sure you remember from being out there, is just Dave is proposing raising the floor structure, the intact, what's left of the floor structure and the walls and roof of the existing carriage house. And then much of the first floor has been compromised or cobbled together, or is simply rotting in the hillside. So we will be bringing this up 18 inches from where it is now, so that it'll be out of the dirt when we put it back down. And that will be mainly because we're right on that, abutting the neighbor, so we want to make sure that, we have no ability to change that grade in that location. So, did you want to talk at all about raising?
That corner is very tricky because it's retaining grade. The building is acting as a retaining wall. But it does slope up on, if you're looking at 2.0, on the front of the carriage house, it starts to slope up on that right side, and then it doesn't really slope down on the back side. So by raising that building up, it helps us get that situation a little bit better, but that wall that faces that side of the property is still going to have to be addressed. Right now there's clapboards that are under grade. It's not a condition that is maintainable, so we'll have to do something there, and it will retain grade. So from an aesthetic standpoint, I don't think that'll be an issue, but that corner is a real issue to be dealt with.
When you say raise that building up, what can you talk about the carriage house?
Yes.
The carriage house, so right now, I don't want to misspeak, but let's just say that the floor is at elevation 18 and a half. Raise that up because basically there was a dirt floor here originally, and part of if we're looking at this carriage house 2.0, about the center window to the right, they poured right over the original floor. There's kind of a quasi slab there that's poured over members and dirt. So by getting rid of that, raising that up a little bit to help the grade on the front of the building, that will alleviate some of these.
The impact of the raising will be in the garage doors? The carriage house doors?
I'm suggesting.
Height of the first floor.
Yeah, we raise.
So the distance between the top of the doors and the windowsills will change?
Right, well, right now, all of these elements sit on the ground. I think if you look at, this is where it's easier to see.
See it in the little photo on 2.0? Zoom in on that photo.
Yes. Oh,
There's a rendering on 3.0, and it looks like the trim of the garage doors,
If you
which
go to-
is hard to judge how tall they are, but it looks like the trim touches the windowsills.
If you go to 4.0, there's an elevation of that, and you can see that 4.0, and you can see on the wall that has now been installed about a little over a foot on either side of both garage doors and the man doors, so that now that siding is not directly on the ground, which is where it was before. So we're introducing it in foundation, basically. There is no foundation there. It's visible now. The wall's like framed on the ground.
Yeah.
So
But the
that's
doors are
where-
going to stay at grade,
Yes.
Correct, yes.
so they're actually going to grow taller.
Yes. The doors will be, the overall, the height of the second floor will come up 18 inches in an effort to maintain the same first floor height that now actually sits on a stone-clad foundation instead of on a slab on the ground, level with the driveway. All of the framing was sitting right in the water.
6.8 kind of illustrates the condition.
6.8.
Yeah, sorry, that's all the way down
I
there.
have an iPad.
6.8, photo A will show you where those shrubs are to the right of
Right.
the door, where grade is against siding there.
Right.
And that actually continues along the rest of the front of the building and then down the right side, the entire right side.
Yeah. So we're just trying to take what's there and get it on something masonry.
And
Get it
actually,
on some masonry.
yeah, not to get off on a tangent, but on 6.8, photo labeled D shows you that wall that abuts the neighbors that is retaining grade.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sure.
All right. All right, back to 2.1, scroll back.
I know it works, just go back.
Go back to the beginning and start over.
Go back to the beginning and start over.
It's like the Princess Bride all over again.
All right. So 2.1 shows the demolition of the dogleg connector and the outbuildings, which we've spoken about on the back of the carriage house. And then a portion of the wall that isn't already gone will be removed for the construction of the new addition. 2.2, again, the back buildings and the structure will be maintained for support, but that lower wall of the carriage house is already, first floor wall is already gone inside that building, which you can see in the view of existing rear elevation right at the top of 2.2. Beyond that, what you see there is not much. So, and then the connector, again, we talked about that. And the original doors will be saved, salvaged, and reinstalled. 2.3, again, the dogleg demolition in the small connector, and then the carriage house, we're showing that dotted line just below the second floor structure, where the lower floor will be replaced in kind, and then the later additions will be removed. And we are going to pursue the dormer on that side as well. And then 3.0 shows the rendering of the carriage house with its little foundation showing in the corner, and the connector building with the half-story and the new dogleg entrance between the two different volumes. And then 3.1 shows the extension out the back of a new great room, which is being added as, you know, a lifestyle area, but we are doing that in an effort to retain and preserve the center stair layout. All the rooms and areas within the mansion are, you know, keeping that more of a classic layout. And then we're completely concealing the addition, which you can see from on 3.0 is not visible at all from any public way. And we talked about that a little bit last time. We did a whole photo tour of all the areas. We did a very extensive to make sure this is a very private lot, very heavily treed. There's a very big embankment going up on the side, so it's a pretty contained area. So we also pursued in this 3.2, you can see we've pursued the the mansard roof with the gable end as an addition, as a replacement of the buildings that we're demolishing, which are kind of self-destructing in a way back there. So we're looking to replace it with this form. And then 4.0 is the actual dimensional intention here. You can see the elevations we're proposing, very much in keeping, and has a very similar flavor and vibe as the existing front elevation photos directly above. And calling out all the materials here. And the concept here is to use the historic trim profiles that are existing on the carriage house and carry them across the new connector construction. And then on 4.1, we'll be documenting all of this in the approval as to where all of these trim profiles will be installed. But on 4.1, we will take the classic trim details from the annex and bring, because they're slightly higher level of detail there, and bring that across these newer areas that are in the back. So we'll be using those two simpler profile across the front on the driveway side, and a slightly more ornate, but we won't be doing dentals or any of that. We're leaving that just for the historic building itself.
That's on the annex.
Correct.
Yeah.
The dental molding's going back on the annex, but we won't be carrying that through. We'll just be carrying some simpler versions of that profile. And then 4.2, again, just shows elevations and dimensions of everything that you've seen in the model, just in this form, so you can, see how it is, what the dimensions are and how they relate to one another, with the existing conditions on the same page, so you can sort of compare. 4.4. This is that elevation where we're trying to get the building up out of the ground. And then 5.0, we are looking at asphalt roof shingles on all addition and new construction, and we are looking at doing the slate on the carriage house at this point. So we're carrying that theme that we discussed at length last time, that the slate would be on the historically preserved structure, and that the coordinating asphalt would be
There's a
on the
little
rest.
dormer on there.
Yes, that would all be, yeah.
Slate.
And then we're.
Just to interrupt,
Oh, sure.
will you see slate and asphalt in a single view?
You will, from the driveway, if you go back to, 3.0, the connector piece there behind the flagpole and the upper roof will be asphalt just from that area. And then the slate will be on the carriage house, and obviously it's already approved on the mansion and the annex.
Okay.
Are you really sure you want to use ICO?
No.
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 I mean, they're failing all over the place, all over the city.
It really is.
We'll look into that.
Any other brand would be.
Yeah. Certainty is, I think, generally a good panel.
Are you sure you want to have that mix of slate, asphalt, slate?
No, but at this time, we'll have to discuss that with the people who are financing.
Is that the preference of the client, or is that the preference of something out of the Secretary of the Interior standards? What drove that, given you're replacing the connector and it's new construction? That's all I could figure out why you did that, is because the carriage house exists, the house exists. When you're building a new connector, you didn't want to make it look historic. But is that what drove this, or does the
It
client
is.
not want to do it? That's insulate.
Getting it done has been challenging.
Getting what done?
Getting the slate, sourcing the slate, getting the labor, getting all, it's been a challenge. It is new construction in between, and basically from the backside, you can't see any of that.
The backside, yeah.
Yes, on the backside. So we did talk internally about whether or not you would carry it across the front and then transition, because you aren't going to see it even from the ground back there.
But
You're
it's
not-
on the annex, right? Which you don't see from the street. Is it going to be on the annex?
No, the annex is all slate.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you're going to put new slate on the building you removed, and you're going to replace taller, but no one's really going to see that unless they come in the site. It's
They
not
will
that
on the
visible.
driveway side.
Yeah,
Right.
where the garage is pretty visible, and the connector. I'm just trying to figure out if the
Okay.
client or some theoretical principle is
Well, we're
driving.
trying not to do half roofs.
Well, yeah, you do the whole thing, I would think. I mean,
Right,
it-
but then it just goes on and on into the back,
Right.
into the rest of the new construction, and the whole,
So it's less of a supply issue than a cost issue because.
it's a cost issue and a supply and time, and just,
Yeah,
Just
I
an
think
issue.
quite frankly,
It's
it's,
an issue,
it's, there's all, I think quite frankly, it's something that hasn't been completely, we haven't reviewed it completely with the client. If there are areas that we can make good decisions that do provide a cost benefit, great, provided that it's, it's not detrimental to the project. And so that's really where we're at. I mean, it needs to be discussed further. We have multiple roofing medias there. We have slate on the mansion, the annex. We have a copper roof proposed on the dog
You have
trot.
a huge amount of roof.
Yeah. Oh,
Really do.
tremendous amount.
A tremendous amount, and the only thing that I can say, and I'm willing to accept the shingles as long as they're not ICO, is that the percentage of the roofing that you have to do by you substituting, you're only taking about 15 or 20% of the roofing job away and using the shingles, so it's really not that going to save you that much money considering everything else you're doing.
Yeah, no.
Just a thought.
It's a
And
fair,
it's in a prominent spot. It's your front, it's your curb appeal. I know you're agonizing over it, obviously. And so am I.
So where are we, 5.0?
where's the transition? Yes, that's what I'm agonizing over. Where's the transition?
where's the healthy transition?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
The roof lines too present a challenge, but I guess
We'll look at it.
we hear.
Cover the whole thing with it.
All right, 5.0 is our materials, many of which we're carrying over from the previous approval. Again, same on 5.1, same brick, same everything.
Can we talk about the window shutter? I notice on all of your renderings that you're not putting them on the front of the building, is that?
No, they are,
They're every place else.
right, I think we put them on, they're put on here basically for, I guess this is previously approved, that transitional area where we were talking about whether it was approved before or not, the connector, so we left it on for that reason. But it's not proposed on any of the carriage house or connector or that area, just in
No,
the.
I'm talking about the mansion.
Oh,
The front of the mansion?
Yeah. The
They're not-
renderings don't show it, I don't believe. No,
I think we went with what's there.
3.0. Well, somebody took the shutters off.
They're gone.
No, I don't even know that there's shutter pins there, because when Wentworth did the house again, they have those, I call them ears, on the side of the trim. I'll have to go back in the photos, but I'm pretty sure there are no shutters, or I don't dare use the word originally on the building, because it was changed in 1859-ish, but they're, like on the sides, there are clearly the shutter pins still there. in the siding.
I just wonder why they would leave the shutters off the front. This doesn't make any sense. Especially in the day. I mean, the shutters were kind of like an insect. You know, thing that they could close their shutters, open their windows, maybe have screening if there was screening, and later on in the 19th century, but I would certainly like somebody else to step in on this. It's very knowledgeable. Mr. Adams.
I've nothing to add. It doesn't look like there were shutters in the front of the building when they changed the window frames.
Yeah, so they went to more of a Greek revival look.
Yeah, which, granted, as you suggested, in its day, was a very common, shutters were a very common element, but not that kind of, that style of half-crocketed window frame, which complicates things.
Yeah.
And we did review the inside because it has the double wall and the flared seat there, the panel, which looked like it might have concealed interior shutters,
Interior
but
shutter.
it
That was
did
from the
not.
first generation of the
I
building.
wonder if they're still there.
They're not. Yeah.
Right.
I'll go back through some photos, but I've
Yeah, all right, it was just a comment. Sorry, 5.1, is that where we are?
We've gone, well, we went through shutters and triggered a question, but we're basically resubmitting all of the same windows, doors, shutters
Yeah, okay.
that we had approved previously. We got the little timestamp there in red hollow letters. And then basically, we've included the appendix to answer, which we've already referred to a couple of times, to answer some of these questions, so we don't have to go through that. This is sort of a summary of our previous meeting and how we arrived at this design and some of the engineering and some of the notes on Dave's approach, and that's about it for the appendix. So do we have any other questions that we didn't cover, comments, questions that we want to talk about?
Anybody?
I thought it was very thorough. Thank you. I thought it was very thorough, the presentation.
Certainly very thorough.
And the,
I agree. Very thorough.
I understand the cost and the struggle with the slate and with so much roof. But me being that the fact that only the front mansion is visible from the street, I don't have a problem with going from slate to doing shingles on the new construction, slate on the carriage house.
Well, as always.
I've taken a look at the plans that were submitted last time for this addition out the back. And while I haven't measured things, it appears to me to be a much, much larger project. And while I understand that this is a shaded lot and a very private lot, and really that you just have one person who's up on that hill on Richmond Street who's going to look down on this. But my concern remains that we're taking what was a relatively small, low-profile, simple, very rustic carriage house, and we're turning it into something extremely grand. And when I look at the composition of the whole complex, between the mansion and the annex and the carriage house and now this other piece, even though from the front you're limited in what you're seeing, I'm starting to question this, the question of the relationship between the main building and the outbuildings. And one of our criteria is how do these relate to each other? Subordinate, primary, and so on. So I just want to raise the question of the appropriateness of the amount of stuff that's being added to the back, while recognizing that it's private. But, this is still, it looks to me as if we're adding a mass that's 2/3 of the mansion?
There is a slope out back there. There's a lot of sloping, so there is some of that. But we very, very purposely kept the ridge of the connector building with the little, clear story.
That's why those windows are so small.
Below the carriage house and the annex and the mansion, of course, it's below all three of the historic masses. And we've made sure that anything we're doing in the back is behind that, at or below that same ridge height. So we're not popping up anywhere.
Mr. Adams?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for an opportunity. Start with a couple of easy pieces. The carriage house doors are way out of scale with the carriage house that they're on. They don't really seem like they have any relationship to the building. They're just, the scale is way too far. You made them taller. I understand how that happened. I think something else has to be resolved, unless you're driving Winnebagos in there, and that's why you need them that size.
That's what they look like.
That's what they look like. The connecting shed with the second floor, I think, is just, to me, it's a non-starter. I know it masks things in the back, but it's a non-starter. I'm a bit of a traditionalist, and I really have a thing for those small connecting sheds with their part roofs. I think on that same side in the front of the courtyard area of the building, the frilly arched door, glazed arched door thing, I think that's just way over the top. It has no relationship architecturally to anything other than the things that you're doing on the back, which it doesn't relate to because it's not on that side of the building. And now we get to the back of the building, and just to say, I think it's without precedent, out of scale, completely incompatible with the design of the house, completely incompatible with the design of the neighborhood. I think it's making a mockery of the historic house. It challenges one's ability to wrap a head around the different numbers of different sizes of the columns, the half-round buildings, the colonnades, it's a massive. It's like it's going to become a resort, and this is my neighborhood, and I live here, and I don't want a resort there. And I don't think that in my charge of trying to preserve the architectural history of the community and maintain the architectural character of the buildings therein is being served by any of this. I think it's a mess. My opinion.
All right.
Without arguing about it.
No, I just want to direct you to 6.0 because we talked about this last time, and I thought we were
Missed the last time part. Pardon me very much.
right. So we got some pretty strong direction that the historic precedent on 6.0, the Nathan Parker House, because we talked a lot about, we came in and had a very lengthy, maybe you can watch it on the.
I did.
You did, okay. So we had a
I
very.
didn't have an opportunity to speak, though. You can't yell at
no,
the
I know.
TV hard enough for you to hear it.
So we did
Okay.
sort of pick up the arches from that, and we picked up, I'm sorry that you're not as sympathetic to the Nathan Parker House example and some of the other examples that we sort of looked at. But
And that's not a good picture of Nathan Parker because it doesn't have the latest additions on the back and an elevator on the back of the Nathan Parker house. Is anybody else here? Yes, and then Reagan.
It is large, but here's the thing, as when I go between sheet 3 and 3.1, that's how you would do it. That's how you would successfully pull off such a large addition like that and still have that view at 3.0. So I don't have a problem with it. The way it's done, very rambling, very piece-like, little parts and things like that. I think it's wonderfully done. To me, it looks like a monastery. It's got some elements of that with the cloister.
Choir in the cloisters,
But
the loggia.
I accept that it is what it is. It's back of the house, and as long as 3.0 looks at the way it does, I can support it. I do have heartburn about the mixing of the slate and the asphalt in one view. But I think you're doing some wonderful things here, and you should be given some latitude based on the fact that the degree of which you're renovating the old house, and so you have my support.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here? No, we don't. I would just like to say that I do indeed support in the direction you're going. I'm not quite as, I don't know. Mr. Adams, I just don't know. When we talked at the beginning of this thing, that because of the condition of the main house, we were willing to let them, do some work on, and all of the connecting buildings are rotted. I don't think the footprint itself. I would actually like you to do a calculation of the existing footprint.
The existing footprint's made out of things like sheds.
I don't care.
And
I don't
ancillary
care,
buildings.
Adam. And the new footprint. I would like to see that. But yes, the back is grand. This is a grand house. This and the Langdon house together are quite something. So somebody wants to really make this their home the way that they want to live this lifestyle, and they want to live it in downtown Portsmouth. And from the front, it looks very convincing. I mean, maybe even you don't like the circular drive and all the bushes. The only thing I can agree with you, Mr. Adams, is I don't like that rounded arched door which I keep looking at going, why is that there? To the left of the flagpole on 3.0. But otherwise, I'm in support as far as it's going right now. And then Reagan.
Yes, thanks. I am generally in support of all the work that's being done, especially from the front. I think it's all great. I don't really even have a problem with mixing slate and asphalt. I think that most people, unless you're really looking for it, aren't going to notice it. My issue also is with the back a little bit. Not so much, not necessarily the massing of it, because it's really not visible, as you said, but I'm kind of just baffled by A, the use of stone, and B, all of the arched windows and doors. It really does. I had the same impression. I was like, this looks like a little English chapel. I don't quite understand where the arches come from in the stone. It just seems very different, and I appreciate an intentional difference in new construction when it's part of a historic building. But this seems so different that it just doesn't match at all. So I'm a little bit perplexed by how that came about. So I think that, my opinion would be to make it a more successful, complete new design. I would probably just stick with the brick and make it look a little bit less church-like, I suppose. Because there are none. There are no arches on the historic building. You've got the curved single-story sort of enclosure, like sort of glass enclosure on the back, but that was a later addition. So I don't know. It just seems like too much of a departure in the language of the house. But otherwise, everything that you've done to the front to really preserve it, preserve the look, even that top little addition is I think is successful and right in line.
So my hearing's a little bad, Reagan. Did you actually say stick with the brick? Did I hear that?
Yeah, no, that's right.
You did?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
This came out funny.
We do have a homeowner preference for the arch forms, And we did look for, something from this time period to support that. So maybe the style could be slightly different, but, and we did not do any, there was some thought of, we really did adhere to the architectural detailing, and I do see that these doors are definitely, looking like they could be rescaled. But we did adhere to a lot of the simple forms across any place that you would be viewing, any place that would be in context with the mansion from the street. We were very respectful of the details specific to this structure, and then we walked that fine line. If we had made all the back of this building out of, curtain wall, would that have been acceptable? Because it was curtain wall instead of some other
That's not
expression.
funny. That's not funny.
Well,
And so I
it's
think
true.
at this point that you've gotten some differing opinions.
Okay.
And I don't think that you need to rebut everybody at this point. I think you just need to, look at your plans and come back next month or.
Did you, just before you head out, you had 6.0 in there, obviously.
Yes. Exactly.
I know what I could do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just find that usually we're trying to get people to be a little bold. We see some boldness and we're like, ooh, throttle back.
Behind a barn.
Okay.
All right.
If there's anybody in the public, I'm not sure I do that. Yeah. Speak on this?
There's not.
No, there isn't. So I don't think we need to vote, I just having them come back. You do?
Sorry, just do it. Time you ask, it's done.
Yeah, okay. So would somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue.
Second?
Yes.
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Marco?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Reagan?
Yes.
And John says aye, okay? We'll see you.
August.
All right.
August?
Yes.
August 3rd? The second
Second meeting.
meeting?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Now I've lost-
Make it done with it. Yeah. Yeah.
You get so many work sessions. Okay, work session requested by 8 KPH LLC owner for property located at 161 Deer Street, wherein permission is requested to allow the demolition of the existing structure and the new construction of a new mixed-use building as per plans on file in the planning department. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 125 as Lot 17-3 and lies within Character District 5 and Historic District. And who's here is to present this? Welcome.
Tom Ballin representing the owner, and Carla and Jake, again, from CJ Architects.
Thank you, Tom.
Joe,
For the record.
All right. So, last time we were here, we talked about how we sited the building. We talked about a lot of the getting rid of the ramp. We talked about, just trying to ground the building, ground the and storefront entrances, work with, within the zoning ordinance, and we really made a lot of progress in rethinking. Just a sidebar. Tom is a neighbor in the building, so we're discussing this often. And working really hard on it. So, and it shows. I think it's coming along very well. If you look at 2.0, you can see that we've done an aerial view here, so you could see the building fitting into the community, fitting into the site. Again, this property is, from the beginning, highly influenced by its position against the railroad and having that train station history and industrial architectural precedent in general. Going to 2.1, we've developed a transitional, what I like to call a transitional industrial style. We've adopted the flat arch with a keystone, but we are executing it in metal. And we've introduced a window pattern, very simple, very elegant, with a detail that we carry into the railing system. And we've got a nice curved corner celebrating the entrance with a glass canopy and a accent metal arc detail above on the upper floor. The penthouse, as you can see from 2.1, is practically out of view based on the setbacks, and so that top floor is fairly well concealed, and then you can see the storefront wrapping around here as well. A few punched openings as we develop. If this is an acceptable approach and the plans start to come into focus, the glazing will be responding to that. But this is our design concept and inception. 2.2, coming around to the view from Vaughan Street, looking across the railroad tracks. We have quite a bit of a setback. I think we have a 15-foot setback there now at the rail side. 15-foot setback at the rail side, and of course the fence required by the rail, any rail new construction abutting a rail property. The entrance to the garage is also seen by the two existing transformers when we'll be adding a third, so two of them are already there, so we're clustering the third one with them. And then we have some plantings and again the balcony, same simple balcony expression. We also have some grates for mechanical equipment, if you can see them a little bit above the garage doors and above that, under the canopy, which we'll see later on in this 2 series. Again, 2.3, the view from Bridge Street looking up the street at the intersection. And then 2.4 is a close-up of the canopy siding detail with the brackets applied to the building, and a grate system again for mechanicals. So a lot of the mechanicals will be concealed behind that because that's not going to be extremely friendly space abutting the rail yard there. So we're looking to create the canopy as protection and have a sidewalk and area back along the rail side. So 3.0 gives you the elevations and dimensions for the building and the penthouse, and then we have some things that we reviewed in the appendix from our last meeting. So we can look at that, refer to that if need be, but looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this.
So what did you give us that's new, just in general, the details of
the
general?
Well, last time all we had was white box.
Everything in front of that.
Oh, last time was all
Yes,
white box.
it was all white box.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All
Right. So this time we're really looking at the architecture.
Okay.
Last time was sort of the sketchy massing study.
Yep.
And we looked at how to erode the corners and whether they should be radial or we should do, how should we pull back the penthouse, and we looked at a series of
Can somebody jump on this now?
form erosions.
Should we keep going? Yeah, all right.
Thank you, Chair. I like the fact that you can't see the penthouse. I like that that's hidden. I like that we've gone brick, glazing, and metal. I think the metal incorporates the railroad tracks very nicely. And I like this the curved corner. I think that is very. I like that a lot. It's very inviting. It's special. Tells you where the entrance is. Yeah, and I mean, I like that the little parts, like on the balconies, you've had the same accent on the windows. I like little touches like that, little attention to detail.
Thank you.
Yeah, the first thing that strikes me is these arches. They seem like they're a huge signature element on the building, and to me they just seem applied, and they don't seem there's like such a huge, like almost like bridge structure element, and yet I know that they're probably just going to get pushed right on, just glued to the building, and I'd like to see them have at least some more authenticity about them, and maybe they're part of a structural lintel that actually recedes into the brick, so that the brick is pulled away and that you're seeing the lintel inside, that these are actually holding up something instead of just an applied decoration. Because I like the direction this could go in. Some of the cornice seems spindly for such a massive building. I like the curved corner. Again, very spindly sort of brise-soleil across the top of the window. Very spindly canopy element. Where the building meets the sidewalk, it almost looks like there needs to be something about how this meets the ground, and right now it's sort of just plopped on the site and doesn't really relate to the sidewalk, and it would be nice if it had more of a pedestrian-friendly facade all along that sidewalk on both sides. But those are my comments.
Okay.
David?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Couple of things jump out at me, and I think Martin is correct about the smoothness and flatness of this heavy arch element that you're putting on. It could be solved maybe by a small corbel of brick on each one to allow it to have a little bit more mass and to give it a sense of a little bit more bearing. Other thing that comes to my mind, I agree that the canopy is a little thin. And I don't know honestly how to interpret that at this moment, but wondering if the wall of that curved section could just rise up a little teeny bit. I know that the cornice thing that we're talking about is very small, but if that rose up just a little bit, a couple of feet, it would give the entryway a little bit more presence and provide a little bit more of a break in this thin cornice at the roof. I'm not so bothered by the building rising up out of the ground if the solution is going to be polished pieces of granite that 5 years later we wish they hadn't done. But other than those couple of things, I think this is a wonderful looking building.
Thank you.
Ed, I like the little canopy and bracket assembly on the back. I think the way that you approach the railroad siding, acknowledging that it's there, but not saying, well, we'll just make it a blank wall because no one's ever going to want to see that. There's a lot of this that's really very, very nice, a little bit of repetition. The building is unashamed sitting on its lot.
Thank you. I'm going to credit Tom with the
There you go. It's got to be someone.
Actually, I'll throw one thing out. It's worth noting that there's no appurtenance shown on top of the penthouse because there won't be any equipment on top of the penthouse. It'd be dead fiber.
Good. No restaurant?
Missed that.
There may be solar panels, but they will also be dead flat. But
Martin's having a heart attack.
Watch yourself. But we don't see them.
Karen?
So I like where this is going also, and I like the elements, the arches. I wouldn't be afraid to beef it up even more like these two gentlemen have said. I think it's a building that can take some strong elements. The backside, again, it's making the best of that location, and it's not objectionable in any way. In fact, it's kind of interesting. They're looking over the tracks to the cemetery. So,
Yes.
I mean, the train only goes through a few times a day. So, yeah, I like the direction, and I'm excited about it. I really like the way you did the corner with the setback, and then you did the same with the balcony areas, that they're set back ever so slightly too. So it's yeah, I like it. I like where you're going.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like it. I think that everybody has said something that I would have said, so I don't really need to say anything more, except that I think the major entrance, instead of glass canopies, I think that something a little heavier, a little more metal, given the weight of the other arches, might help with that welcoming feel. And I absolutely agree with Martin's comment about the keystone arches being seen in a way that reflects what they originally were.
Right.
And that
The detail of that.
that
will
they
be
fit
huge.
into, when somebody looks at them,
Yeah.
even though we know they weren't constructed as an architectural element to keep the building alive and standing, you can't help that.
Right, right.
And so I'd just like to say also, concerning those arches, I mean, if this building were like the Eagles building or something, and they were winged spans or something, that would be kind of cool, but I'm way out right now. I agree with everything I've heard, and also the canopies in the recessed rounded portion. That's the weakest part of the building. And I really do like your small railroad-type canopy that extends along the backside. But otherwise, I feel that, the sizing and everything seems to be heading in a right, good direction. No, we haven't gotten Reagan yet.
Keep detail here.
You're up, Reagan.
Hi. Yeah, I also had the same feeling as Martin. I looked at this and just these keystone, quote unquote, things look very applied and very cartoonish to me. I mean, I understand we're trying to have some sort of decoration on this building and make a statement, but I've never seen a metal keystone arch, and it's something that obviously does not, as people have said, play a structural role in the building, but it looks very bizarre to me. So I'm not really a fan of that. It's the same with John. They kind of look like bats or something. It is. I see where the idea came from, but it's not working, in my opinion. But everything else, I mean, is I think is fine, going in the right direction. The shape, the massing, some of the details coming out look like they're making good progress. Just want to make sure that there is plenty of pedestrian first level doors and storefronts and things like that to really make it something that is pedestrian friendly and gives a lot of life to the street there. I'm a little concerned about, on this image that we're looking at right now, that left sort of bay where I'm guessing that is that part of the parking area inside?
That's a utility area.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering if that,
Move it back.
I don't know if that can be moved around to the back or something like that, so that you don't have just this big, I mean, that seems like a big a substantial wall there where someone would walk by and it's just brick. So, I think, yeah, keep moving in this direction. I don't quite. I think there's a lot of, you referenced the train station a lot. I don't see much of the train station in this building other than the little canopies in the back. So it would be interesting to see if you could actually incorporate more of that into the design.
Alrighty. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to throw out there for consideration from everybody. I think you've got the ability on that corner element to strengthen it, as Dave said, maybe with a heavier cornice. You could do a parapet, but you could also put a tower element there as an appurtenance and, treat that differently than just sort of cut it off at the knees. I think, Dan Rowling was here, he'd be saying that, and I think that it needs a skyline element. It is the corner of the building that it should be looked at. I don't know that you're aware you can get the 7 to 12 feet to work with on that corner element if it's an uninhabitable space as an appurtenance.
I respect that you mentioned that, Nick, but I think we've seen that done in this neighborhood, and I'm looking forward to seeing something different on the corner.
Okay.
John, can I just have?
Yeah, certainly.
Sheet 2.2, it looks like that's your garage entrance.
Yes.
Could that, could we treat that a little more pedestrian friendly? Maybe, could it be glass instead of that bit of lattice you have there? Could that be glazed into the space there? Just so that it's less of a utilitarian car-friendly space and more of a person-friendly space.
Kind of hard to see it right now.
2.2.
Yeah, I see, but, there's a tree in the way.
These are actually required street trees, so we may have to be creative about showing you the building.
So,
Yeah.
so you've got everyone's opinion. Some people are
Thank you.
for your design element. You said something that makes a lot of sense. Really, the details could make or break these keystone arches.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
absolutely. But, so I guess I need a motion to continue.
Anyone in the public?
Oh, is there anyone in the public? Thank you, David. I need help.
So moved?
Second.
Okay. Martin?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Reagan?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye.
Okay.
See you next month.
Thank you all.
All righty.
Very helpful.
And it was fun. Is anybody feeling any need of breaks or anything?
No, keep going.
Oh, phew.
Could use a break.
Okay.
Sorry, hey, it's,
We get two more.
we're gonna end early.
It's quiet.
We got two more.
I could just sit here and hold it.
Ooh. Oh, don't do that.
Don't hold it anyway.
Really?
You really want a break?
2 minutes?
We can take a...
3 minutes. 3
All right,
minutes.
let's take a break.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
We'll get by all this. Don't you worry. We'll get you home, young girl.
took a break.
Okay, all right. Now, welcome back. So this is this 324?
Yes.
Yeah. Work session requested by 7 KPH LLC. See something brewing here.
It does seem like there's a pattern.
For property located at 324 Maplewood Avenue, wherein permission is requested to allow renovations to an existing structure. Replace and add windows and doors, new siding, and trim details on the single-story accessory structure. As per plans on file in the planning department, said property is shown on Assessor Map 141 as Lot 1, lies within Character District 4-L2 and Historic District. Welcome.
Hello, Brendan McNamara. I'm the designer on the project, and this is Nicole Abshir, who's actually the owner of the property. When the application was made, 7 KPH was the previous owner, and Nicole took possession 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
In June.
Yeah.
We closed in June.
Congratulations. Do you also own the corner building?
Yes, the corner building, the garage, and then I live right next door on Denon.
So essentially, Nicole bought the property, because the garage was under threat, of redevelopment, and which would have been fairly negative impact for Nicole's house right next door. And so, so there's a level of protection involved in the whole thing. So what we're looking to do is to improve the appearance of the garage within the context of how it currently exists. So it has the previous owner, actually it may have been the previous owner, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
2 owners ago.
So he had the what still is, the Cabinet Concepts was in the building on the corner, and then he had that garage which he used as storage, and then he started to sort of develop it as being a bit of a showroom, and I lost steam on that. But it's an original 1940s masonry garage, and then it's got this pitch roof on it. I think he may have strengthened the roof. I don't think he changed the pitch, but there's a lot of new framing in there. And of course, he then assisted framing onto the masonry block wall, and has put the clapboards on it, and basically kind of thrown different things at it. And so we'd like to give it some sort of cohesive look, rather than the way it is now. So we have there's the photo of the way it currently occurs. And there was an interesting photo in the Portsmouth theme, I thought, from when they did the 80 survey, that had it still with the masonry block. You can see on this one here, prior to recladding it. So again, we don't want to, the classic thing would be to turn it into a replicant of a historic house, but we're just trying to keep it as it is, also to protect the circumstances that Nicole found herself under. So I've proposed a recladding of it, which is shown here. I did choose to do it in the red. So the red's not important. The main thing is at the moment it's basically grey and white. It's just like jumping out of the eye. We're trying to get it to visually recess, and also just to clean up the outside, give it a cohesive rhythmic window pattern, still utilise the garage there. So that's what we're proposing, and we wanted to come here to review it with you guys. It in the end, the concept is that it'll become a single unit, like to be determined whether it's actually an ADU or however that's going to be done. So we'll have to go through the Board of Adjustment application process, but we thought this was a good place to start to get it out here and to discuss the exterior appearance of it, which is why we're here.
So this is a brick veneer, is that what you're?
It's a solid masonry, concrete masonry block CMU building.
Your proposal?
Oh no, our proposal is just to reskin it.
Those are shingles, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The
It's just
shingles.
red colored, that's all.
Yeah.
Red shingles.
Shingles, not slabs.
Yeah.
So it's cement block?
Yeah.
Underneath it.
Yeah,
And it's a block building.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But this, the detail that you're giving, it looks like it's brick. Am I?
No, that's just the
Red
colour.
shingles.
No, it's red. It's Maybeck white cedar shingles with I've shown it in a reddish stain.
Oh, all
Again,
right.
yeah, sorry.
Thank
that was,
you.
yeah.
Now-
no,
now you're
it's not
clarifying
brick
it
at
for
all.
me. I'm
It could be
sorry.
blue. It was just more. There's a blue house next door. I just wanted to contrast, but also the concept is that the windows, they'd be darker windows, not necessarily black. With the dark trim, it's really to try and have it absorbing light, not reflecting it. Because you see, you come around the corner, and you've just got this, this kind of thing at the moment, that's there,
Yeah.
and we're trying to not have that leaping out at you.
You could just paint it.
You could, yeah, but the trouble is, it's all a bit
Are you-
messy.
Are you changing the inside structure? It looks like right now it's turning into a garage and
It's-
ADU as it is, right?
Yeah, the concept would be, it would be reconfigured on the inside to a unit. It's a.
Isn't that what they're doing right now?
No, that was done by the previous owner. He had it, so there's a main cross wall that we will keep, but he was really setting it up for a cabinet display. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
actually, it's not plumbed, but he had like 2 kitchen laid out on the floor, and then he had like a storage room, and there's a bathroom in there.
Well, so we've got to have some comments here.
I'm still, one last question. What kind of shingle is this?
The white cedar Maybeck, pre-dip shingle.
Pre-stained.
Yeah.
So just cedar shakes, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And not necessarily red?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Mark?
Yeah, beautifully done. I like the new openings, I like the new fenestration, it's wonderfully done, and red looks terrific. That's it. It's great.
Okay.
I'll agree with Commissioner Ryan. Obviously, we have no purview over color of paint, so we can't. But I appreciate your efforts to try to blend it in with the old Franklin School and kind of, instead of drawing all the attention.
A slight correction, we do when something is factory coded.
Okay. When do we do? Okay. So yeah, I appreciate that effort, and I think it looks very nice. You know what I mean? The attention to detail is there, and
Yes, Karen.
I like it, it's simple. You could have done a lot of other things with it, but you just kept it clean, and it's such a major improvement from what's there. Yeah, and I don't dislike the red, if that is your color choice.
Well, I'm getting sick of blue with white trim.
Yeah, blue and white.
Every place.
Blue and white.
Don't look at my house.
Dave? I know.
I think it's a swing and a miss. I know it's a 1940s block garage. I know that, and that's a humbling moment here. But this is a early to late 19th century neighborhood, and this, I mean, it's still even redone with some effort. I'm not arguing the effort. I'm not arguing the design, but this, it seems like in the wrong direction. It's going to remain a separate building. It's never going to look like it's part of the neighborhood, and this isn't helping. The heavy parapet, which has a module that doesn't relate to the windows. The heavy inset windows they look so much like filled-in garage doors. I don't buy it at all. Sorry.
Margot?
Well, I hear what David is saying, and it is difficult to sometimes try to make something into what it isn't. And so I'm torn between just calling a spade and saying this is a building that was infilled at a certain point in time according to the style of the time that it was built. And trying to make it look like it's always been there by changing its basic characteristics, which I don't see how you can do that successfully. So I think if what you're trying to accomplish is to have it blend in to the neighborhood without the ability to change it into a Greek revival, whatever, that you would be most successful in your choice of color and material. And so as not particularly attractive as the building exists today, which I think has more to do with the fenestration chosen, the way the door is with this funky arch, and the fact that there aren't doors along the right-hand side and so on, might be contributing more to it looking out of place than some of the other things that you're worried about. I think, just giving the buildings that are around it, that a dark trim is going to make it look more out of place where everything else has white trim. The school behind it is a factor, but I think less so than the buildings to the right or left. Mostly because as people drive by, they're not seeing, the building that's way, up above it, and people tend to look more eye level than they do looking up. So it might have been a swing or a miss, but I don't think that you are so far off that you need to go back to rethinking completely how do we integrate this into the neighborhood, because you can't make a horse into a donkey and vice versa. This is what it is.
That's an old expression.
Yeah, I know, she just made that one.
I think
I
so.
did. I made it up.
I always thought it was a pig's ear.
So that's been
Silk
done.
purse.
Silk purse. I don't know.
That's been done, that's dated.
So I would just like to comment, I agree a bit with David on this. I think you could maybe do more with what you have now, but by adding more windows and changing the paint color. But, I'm willing to see if you come up with something else, what that might be. That's all I'll say. Reagan?
Yeah, I actually agree with David and Margot. To me, this seems to, it's a lovely design, but it seems to be making this building more out of place than it already is. There's not a lot of shingle around here. There's lots of panels. It's these sort of little multi-light transoms above the windows. There's no reference for that anywhere nearby. So it just seems to kind of make it stick out even further or more. So I would simplify this a bit more. I love the idea of transforming this building and using it and putting an ADU in here or whatever. But this doesn't quite work, in my opinion, for the location. So I would go back and try and simplify it, use it, look around, try and get a few more cues from the surrounding context, I think.
David, maybe you should show him a picture of your workshop.
One last comment.
Okay, Dave.
Yeah, I think the clapboard makes it fit in better. I know the color and the design certainly can be worked in better windows, but I think the clapboard fits in better with the neighbors than the shakes. If you're trying to blend it in, I think they're heading in the right direction. They just need a better design and better color.
And a different design.
Yeah.
Is there anybody in the public that needs to speak on this?
Nope.
So I guess, would you like to come back next month, or what do you feel?
Well, could we discuss a little bit more before
Do
we get-
you need, did you say you have to go through the ZBA with this?
Yes,
Yeah.
we do, yeah. So,
Maybe it would be best to clarify that.
yes, so that's, but before that, just a couple of things. So, it starts around the existing garage door. So if you look at it as a sort of an evolving design based around what's there at the moment. So that's, if we start at the replacement of the existing garage door and the intention there, because it just looks really odd at the moment, you know, with the, I mean, it's clearly like they're just like throwing stuff
I
out.
agree that the arch.
So that was what generated the design, was to just make it cleaner, to bring that door assembly up to the underside of where the existing, it's a different panel arrangement, but it's the existing panel arrangement, which is essentially, it's a horizontal line that's absorbing the pitch of the roof going back, you know, on the side shed. So essentially it's just a arbitrary point that goes all the way around. So because that's also south facing, the intention was to have some sort of window assembly as part of those garage doors. So, like in terms of coming back, I just want to talk about what's driving what's there now. So, and the other thing is looking at the photo of the original building, and clearly when you go in and see it, there was actually 2 garage doors there because it was a classic garage. So that was, so the generation of a new garage door that's rectilinear that comes all the way up seemed to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then trying to stay with what the building was like, okay, there's another garage door opening. So that's when we moved to replace the garage door. So that's why you have those 3 windows, which then was really just, again, a logical consequence of saying, well, we're looking for a southern light above the garage doors. When we come over, we have repeating the same thing. So we're trying to plant that 3-window assembly as a replacement of a garage door. So that's kind of, so whether,
I understand what you're saying, but you must understand that, you know, we have other opinions of that.
No, I realize that. But what I'm trying to get a sense of is, like, it's pretty hard for me not to come back here with that arrangement of rectilinear garage door and some rectilinear representation of an enclosed garage door, because it's not going to be a garage door.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the garage door.
Yep.
Does anybody have a major heart?
No. And I do think after hearing Commissioner Rudig's comments, that the fact is all the surrounding houses, even the one behind it, is clapboards. I do feel like that might, you know what I mean?
And the clapboards don't really care about, you know,
Yeah.
that was more kind of like, it was the whole silk purse Sauzier thing. It was kind of like, okay, let's embrace the whole thing. The one reason why I've sort of reached for clapboards is because they have a more organic look, and they're more likely to be absorbent than, visually absorbent than clapboards. But the clapboards is fine. It's not. So I don't want to sort of come back and you guys sort of say, you know, we come back and we put clapboards on it, but it's probably not going to be that much different, because the reality is
for direction.
That's
Right
what I'm
now,
trying to give you.
right now he's hearing
Yeah.
that you can't turn this into something it's not, and you can't, I mean, I think we overstep sometimes. Is this appropriate for the historic district? I say yes. Would I do it this way? Not necessarily. And I'm hearing a lot of that. I'm hearing
Yeah, I
like, no, it
understand what
doesn't,
you're saying.
I don't like the taste, I don't like the fashion of this, or, you know, so you want some direct comments like, this is what you need to change to make it right. And you deserve that.
Right. Yeah. So it's really, but also I don't want to be disrespectful and come back and you know, we just changed the clapboard and you go, right, it didn't do anything. It's like, well, yeah, we tried. But it was within the context of what sort of assembly was going on. The other thing about it is of course, the other larger thing is, like, do you redevelop this property, which of course Nicole doesn't want to do, but not just Nicole, like the school doesn't want that to happen, and the other house that's at the backside of the blue house, they, you know, because if it's redeveloped as a historic replicant house, then it's like, man, it just kills off those properties, you know, so it's.
Adding a second story.
Yeah,
I can see that. Yeah.
So that's
It
where.
kills off what?
The
surrounding
rear, there's
properties.
What harm does it do the other 2-story buildings to have a 2-story building here?
It's just going to block them, like the whole rear yard of so on the corner property, there's the blue house is the Cabinet Concepts, but there's a grey house that's immediately behind that. It's really close.
Yeah.
And so if this structure is right on the lot line at that, and right at the back.
Every house in my neighborhood's close.
Yeah.
I guess the reason that I'm hoping for something better, and I came here having obviously looked at this, been to the site, talked to the previous owner, that thing, and I look around the neighborhood, and I see this as a building that is kind of on the entrance to a whole historic neighborhood, a good string of fine mid-19th century buildings, a good string of them, possibly an 18th century building across the street, and some fabulous early 19th century buildings across Maplewood from that, and a new building just up the street, one building up the street from here that we labored over the construction and design of, and thinking that this, runaway Edwardian garage doesn't fit there. And the direction, right? I asked myself, what would I put there? And I know the answer that what I would put there is I put something with 2 stories there, because that's what the neighborhood's made out of. And I think that's what it's crying for. And I know that that doesn't mean that I'm not saying you have to do that.
Right,
But,
and that's where we're at.
but short of that, what are we doing? I don't want you to have to throw away the bank on something that the next person that buys this thing completely tears out because they're going to make it 2 stories. But this heavy corniced, heavy capped building with these 2 filled-in garage doors that you then, at least in the view that we have of this thing, then repeated that same overly tall unit, using the same solution you use on the garage door all the way down the side of the building, I don't think is successful in this neighborhood. And in the neighborhood is absolutely important to what we do here.
Yeah, it's more of almost, well, not really a downtown building, but there were buildings like this downtown that got torn down on Market Street.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Maybe a boomtown roof on, a front facade on it is the answer. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it, but in the bits that I have, nothing came to my mind. I know that doesn't please you, but I know why I'm having a problem. I just don't know what the solution is. Sometimes I'm a lucky guy and I know what the solution is.
Well, just again, not to belabor, but so when you say boomtown, are you talking like Western boomtown?
Well, yes.
Like vertical facade?
Well, I mean,
it did cross my mind, but I was kind of like, oh,
okay,
no.
but you made a comment about the building, and this building is representative of its time, 1940 something or other, probably at the tail end of the Depression, where not a lot of grand work was being done. And I'd say that this represents architecturally about the least expensive thing that they could build there. A single wall of concrete block with a flat roof on it. So what it is, in a nutshell, in terms of architecture, is inexpensive and throwaway.
Yep.
Funny, it remained inexpensive, but it didn't get thrown away. None of that is great precedent for rehabilitation. I'm sorry, it's just the case.
That's okay. 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 I
All
think
right,
you've
so-
given us what we need.
Yeah.
That's great.
Now, do we need a motion
Yeah,
for
you're gonna
what?
come back, right?
No particular date, however.
Yeah, no particular date. Yeah, because
Well, no,
we
need
won't
a
come back, but
We
we
need a
will.
date or we have to re-advertise. So we have to continue it for
Yeah.
a month, and if you're not ready, we'll continue it
Okay.
again.
Can
All right,
continue. for
motion to
2
continue?
Till August.
So moved.
They can kick it.
All righty. Martin?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Margot?
Yes.
David?
Absolutely.
Karen?
Yes.
Reagan?
Yes.
John, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
you.
Thanks a
Thank you.
lot. Sorry you didn't fall in love with it.
That's okay. I didn't expect it to fall.
Yeah.
This problem was got to have that.
Right, but my question was.
Collaborate.
No, my question was.
So, Karen, do you have to,
I'm done on this one.
you're done on it?
Yeah, I can't sit for this one.
An element like that. And change
you would have
it
denied me a-
because this is one of the reasons it doesn't relate to the buildings in terms of.
Gonna hang out just a
I
second.
needed that
But are you going
minutes.
to, you're going to sit out in the audience?
I'm going to be, unless somebody's going to take care of that question I had.
Okay, all right. So a work session requested by Charles R. and Caitlin R. Corey, owners, for property located at 9 Sheaf Street, wherein permission is requested to allow renovations to an existing structure, replace 12 windows. As per plans on file in the planning department, said property is shown on Assessor Map 107 as Lot 13 and lies within Character District 4 and Historic District. Hello, welcome.
Not completely correct. So the application is by Michael and Stephanie Fabonio. Charles Corey sold the property. So I don't know if there's a
Okay, that's the
crossover.
assessor's records that
Oh,
probably
okay.
created that.
So I don't know if there was previously a request for window replacement that didn't get completed, possibly? The way that read, maybe?
So how can we correct this? What am I doing?
I don't know, just introduce yourself, and we got the right property.
My name is
Is
Mike.
this the right property?
Yes, it is.
All right.
That's all I gathered from it was the right street number.
Yeah.
And are you here to replace windows?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what the other person, what you're asking me then. We're good.
Okay. Sort of.
So I am Michael Fabonio. My wife and I, Stephanie, purchased 9 Sheaf Street for the purpose of living in Portsmouth at 9 Sheaf Street. And the first order of business is the windows that are falling out of it. This was not a well-kept property, so the windows are in pretty serious disrepair. And they're not a federal-style window to suit the neighborhood.
Got it. Electric meters.
Yeah, well, we're gonna work on that, too.
We actually have had some heartburn over those electric meters. And I granted that they're there and public service is not sitting before us. But it seems like there must be some way, Mr. Chairman, that we could pressure someone in the process of public service to put this electric supply on the alleyway side where all of the other buildings on Sheaf Street having recently seen a great deal of interest. And I think that it's our turn to step up and try to hold someone's feet to the fire here to do something about this, because this is, it's large.
It's horrible.
And it's unappealing, and at the very least.
Yeah, my understanding is a replacement to a single meter socket would still require, I think now, based on code, an actual shut-off at the meter, which doesn't turn me on because the traffic down the sidewalk, anyone could basically shut your power off, which is one of those fire codes that I look at it and go.
I've never seen, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, so, I mean, you could pull the meter and it serves like a switch,
Yeah.
but they now require
Actually,
an actual lever for the fire department to cut
Does
off
this
power.
have that lever?
It doesn't, but if it was replaced on the front of the building, it would have
Wow.
the lever along with a single socket. But I was very relieved because it was a quick decision like the real estate market is today, where you see something, you have 30 seconds to, to make a decision, especially in downtown Portsmouth. So I thought the meter panel was feeding several houses. I didn't realize it was formerly a multi-unit. So there's 3 separate panels in the building, each fed by a meter. So I was very pleased when I, got a chance to go back after I made the decision to buy it, and I saw that, I wasn't gonna need 3 sockets on the front of the building, and I would love to move it to the back of the building.
I think you have a good chance of that.
And I think that if you have some persuasion with the utility, they may say to me,
David does.
I go way back, so yeah. We'll have to do something.
Ready kilowatt.
Indeed.
yeah. So that would be a wonderful goal settled for us, because it's horrible.
Well, you're gonna get a new electric service. That's your big, that's your starting point.
Yeah.
And so
So we just need to tell them to say that it's
Yeah.
okay to bring it in on Custom House Lane.
Sure.
It comes down to. So the actual total number of windows is 16 that are being requested. There's 1 good window in the house on the back side, and it is on the 2nd floor where the roof of the rear building, which we haven't determined what it was initially, whether it was a woodshed or a workshop or whatnot, but they had to do a half window in that room, so they had replaced that with I think it's a 6 light window that's there. So that's the only window that does not need to be replaced. So if you see, if you look at the windows, you can see that they're, 2/2, some cases 2/1. The third floor, you name it, but, they had vines growing in through the back windows. So the windows are just torn apart. It's pretty ugly. So we're proposing to replace the 16 windows with, on the first 2 floors, 6/6, simulated divided light, all wood windows is the suggestion. But I'd also like to ask the question, because I know the rear of the building is less of a concern, if in the back of the building, if they could be an aluminum clad 6/6 simulated divided light, because the rear of the building sees very little light, and the moisture content back there is much higher. So from a maintenance perspective, it would be advantageous to not have the wood exterior on the window in the back of the building.
What does the rear face? So the front we have here is.
Faces probably
shaded.
north.
Faces north,
Yeah,
pretty much.
it's pretty much north, so.
Pretty much. On Custom Court,
Yes,
Custom House
Custom
Court?
Oh, so it's a little court in there?
That little courtyard with a garage mahal at the end?
Oh, okay, that's right.
The garage mall. Oh, you didn't vote for that one?
I didn't vote for that one, no. So I'm assuming that you're in the process of this. I'm not really one for the species of windows, but I can count. I assume you're putting 3/3s on the third floor?
Yes.
And 6/6s on the first and second
Yes.
floors? And you're not changing the actual window frames that are in the masonry, you're just putting new sashes inside of those existing frames?
So they're Marvin windows that would slide into the frame. So I'm going to lose about 1/2 inch.
I understand.
Of glass by the sliding. So,
Yeah. So this Marvin Ultimate Double Hung,
yep,
this is available as wooden,
all wood.
all wood?
Yep.
And then it's also available as clad.
Yeah, there's a slightly different name to it, but I can do it in
We've
the.
already gone through the names.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
forgotten them already.
Yeah. So the Ultimate has an all wood window, and then they have a second version that is an Ultimate that has the ability to have aluminum clad exterior. Same look, but aluminum clad, and I
Is
think
that what you would put on the back?
that's what I'd
The other
prefer to
one?
put on the back. I mean, I'd love to do it everywhere, but I'm happy to follow protocol of the neighborhood.
Thank you. So we have wood windows that will need to be painted.
Correct.
Fine.
Half screens?
Yes.
Sashes and jams.
So obviously it's going to change the look of the building dramatically, especially if we move the meter sockets. And then,
No, the building will certainly be.
yeah, I
improved.
mean, it's shameful. It really is shameful.
Yeah. Does anybody comments? in
I would
general?
just say that I support pretty much what you're presenting, and I can live with a clad in the back. I do have a question. I'd be interested in what the rest of the board thinks. Is 6/6, given that it's simulated divided light, do we want to go 6/6 so that we're seeing a lot of this, clunky, simulated divided?
This is what, 1/1?
Well, maybe 2/1, no?
It's federal though, right?
I think he's doing the right thing myself.
I think my question would just be the profile of divided, because it's sitting right next to another one?
Should be
Yeah,
pretty
so
refined.
there are options on, they tell me that the aluminum provides a tighter tolerance
Thinner?
for the profile, thinner profile.
Wood?
Than the wood does, because the aluminum adds structure. So that's what they said. They said, well, do they know that it'll be more
Aluminum
historically
on wood,
accurate if it's aluminum clad? I said, it needs to be wood. So, I think you can get thinner, but, yeah, next door has,
I think it should look like next door.
Yeah, I think you need a thin muntine profile.
yeah. So there's a couple options, and as far as the
I think
The
you can
width
go
of-
to a 5/8 month.
Yeah, I'd have to see what they had options, but I know they had, 3 different options for the
There
thickness
are
of it.
other alternatives, the Vermont.
So Vermont, the problem with Vermont was the timeline.
The Green Mountain,
Yeah, he's double.
double the time.
Double the time.
Oh, what is going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, he's-
They're gonna be there a long time.
He's backed up.
They're
Yeah,
gonna be
what
there
is,
a
what's
long-
double
Yeah,
the time
I
mean?
can't live in the house the way it is. It would be physically impossible.
What's double the time mean?
6 to 7 months.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what he's telling me, so my assumption is he's leaning to the side of, don't say that you don't want to wait that long. So, my concern is it turns into 8 months. Really.
I think we're looking at a reasonable project here. Anybody else want to?
As far as the division of the lights, the building to the left and 2 buildings to the right, at least, all are 6/6. And I'll grant you that they are not in any way precisely the same as what he's proposing, but I'm willing to live with the differences then in the dimensions than the count. I think the count's part of the drill here.
Reagan, what do you think? Excuse me, David.
Sorry.
Are you done?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Reagan?
No, I think it's all fine. I'm very hesitant to replace historic windows, and these are historic. They may not be original, but they are historic. But I can tell by the pictures you took, thank you very much for taking these photos, that they're not very high quality historic windows, in that they're not weighted sash. It looks like they just kind of are free running in these, and they're sort of in the frames. So it's not, and they're not consistent either. You've got some that are 2/1s and then 2/2s, and then so I can support the replacement of these windows, and 6/6s are fine to make it look like the rest of the street. If you really wanted to keep the 2/2s, I think you have a historic precedence to do that, but I think the 6/6 is a good choice. And yeah, getting the muttons as small as possible would
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah.
And just to make sure that you notice that the 3rd floor should be 3/3 like its neighbors. Don't try and fit 6/6s in there.
No, no. No.
My wife's not here, so she probably would have jumped on the 2/2 because she's more likely to do some Windexing than I am. But I prefer the 6/6.
So, the one thing I'm going to notice also is if you're successful with your electric meter moving, all of a sudden it opens up a basement window, and you already have another basement. So you have 2 basement windows there that you might want to think about replacing.
Absolutely, and I can see to the right that he does have
Yeah.
a basement window where I didn't really walk down the street
Yeah,
to
natural
notice
light. The
specifically.
basement is the best thing, and if they can open, that's, if you can get some ventilation in your basement, it's the best thing.
Yep. I
Is
hadn't
there-
thought of those, but
I'm going to ask for the public.
Oh, right here.
Yes.
Karen Bouffard. I just want to speak to 2 things. One is the replacement windows. I went that route years ago, and I would just say that replacing the sashes is where I would definitely go in the future. That 1/2 inch of glazing that you are going to lose is going to be a lot more than you think. It really changed the inside of the house significantly. So if there's a way to do just replacement sashes, I would do that again. And then the electric. Thanks for bringing that up, Dave. I think that happened in like 2008, and it was not something that the street wanted. That's a very iconic street, and I don't know how it happened, but the owner was not present, and in fact wasn't really capable of making a lot of decisions at that point, so it happened. But I know you would make a lot of people really happy if you were able to get that off the front of that building and get it in the back with everyone else's. So I thank you for wanting to do that and thinking about that. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Nobody online?
No.
No? Okay, so we need a motion to come back.
Well, does he want to come back, or does he want to come for a hearing?
I don't know how this works.
I mean,
I
think you probably are ready for a hearing, I think. No?
Yeah.
You file with Nick to have a public hearing, and we will make a formal decision. In the meantime, if Mr. Cracknell, you could get along with him and figure out the mullion
Yes.
issue,
Yep.
so that there's one, so we don't have to wonder.
Sure.
I think that's all that needs to be resolved.
Okay.
Got it.
All righty.
So you don't need a vote.
We don't need
Other
a
than
vote for that. Thank you.
Finish.
All good.
You're all set?
I'm all set?
Sorry, the deadline is Friday for next month? Yeah.
So I just need to file
A
and
new
then-
application for a
and get
public
the-
hearing and get the Mutton
the
thing, but
Mutton?
we can work on that even after you file. Just get an
Okay,
application.
all right, yeah, I'll
We'll
get
have a
the
bit of
size.
time.
So you just want the thinnest mutton that I
Or
can.
something that represents similar to the others.
Okay, yeah, I'll measure the neighbors so we can line up.
All right, very good.
And your neighbors will think you're quaint out there measuring their windows.
Yeah. Yeah, look out.
We'll see. I'll ask, in your kind of a, sounds like you're the historian, so to speak. So the back of those buildings, it appears my rear, I'm gonna call it the shed, is the only original extension behind the building.
Wow.
All brick. And then.
Careful.
Then the one next door is wood, and it's a kitchen. And then the one next door is 2 stories, and it's a garage with a, but I was just curious, if you look on the town maps, it looks like they started down further towards 18, and they all cheated the back property lines to make their additions bigger. And of course, when you get to me, I have no place to go to steal from anyone. So I was just curious if there was ever any.
I'm not saying it was dog patch, but it was the back of the buildings. That's where there were stables back there in the day. It was,
Privies.
yeah. I mean, the reality of life was there.
Yeah, no, it's just because it's interesting, because when they repointed their building, they repointed
To the
where
line.
the building ended, but the addition, that's the kitchen, extends past where they repointed. I'm thinking, geez, you should have at least repointed to where your building ended, so it wouldn't look so obvious that you maybe crossed the line.
Welcome to Portsmouth.
That's great.
But yeah, that could have been 100 years ago.
It could have been.
If it was,
Righto, okay, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Do a vote, voice vote?
Now we're gonna have.